Like most RPGs, you're gonna come across many choices throughout your playtime in Skyrim that can alter the fates of various characters and factions. But Skyrim is a very large game, with lots of things to discover, so I wouldn't hold it against you if you weren't aware of the many choices which Skyrim has, but doesn't tell you. So, in today's video, we're going to take a look at 6 hidden choices you didn't know you had in Skyrim. Number 1. You can choose to never become the Dragonborn. Even though becoming a dragon-slaying badass was one of the main things Skyrim marketed, you don't have to become the Dragonborn at all, or at least nobody will ever know that you are the Dragonborn. All you have to do is never meet the Jarl of Whiterun. Doing so will never initiate dragon spawning in the world, which means no dragon souls to consume, which means no opportunity to ever learn that you're the Dragonborn. This will of course lock you out of completing the main questline, but it also means that the people of Skyrim interact with you in a vastly different way. No longer will you be constantly praised for no better reason than just existing, and you'll have to earn your reputation instead, like how it was in Morrowind. It's also quite surprising just how little content requires you to be the Dragonborn. You can even complete the majority of the Dragonborn DLC and the entirety of the Dawnguard DLC with the game accommodating your decision. The only real downside to this is that you'll be locked out of shouts, but on the plus side, you can finally gaze upon the skies in peace without having to worry about any goddamn dragons looking for a fight. Number 2. You can cure Serana's vampirism. Serana is easily the most fleshed out companion in Skyrim, almost to the point where she is in another league compared to the rest of the adventurers and sellswords that you come across to aid you in your journeys. But there's just one problem with Serana. You can't marry her.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
Wait, what I mean to say was that her problem is that she's a vampire, which doesn't bode well when you're trying to roleplay as a holy or good-natured character. On top of this, Serana also can't be healed with typical healing spells and can be hurt by weapons like the Dawnbreaker, which deal extra damage to undead creatures. But all of these issues can be laid to rest, given that you made the right choices. After completing the Dawnguard questline, you can ask Serana if she's ever considered getting a vampirism cured, after which you can decide to either encourage her to cure a vampirism or to ignore the matter. If you decide to tell her to get cured, then she will leave for about 3 in-game days, after which she can be found in Fort Dawnguard with noticeably less glowy eyes. Aside from that, nothing much else changes. Serana will continue to complain about the sun, and she'll still don a hood whenever she's outdoors, and will even continue to use the vampiric drain spell, which doesn't really make sense. But all of this can be forgiven, as Skyrim's most lively companion is now finally, well, alive. Number 3. You can talk to the Champion of Boethia. Anyone that's trying to obtain the Ebony Mail Armor set is well aware of the final challenge required to finally obtain the Daedric Armor piece. You must first prove yourself to Boethia that you're worthy enough to be her champion. To do this, you must kill the previous champion, a dark elf who resides in Knife Point Ridge. Most players who meet with the Champion of Boethia typically just try to kill him on sight, as he does to you. But interestingly enough, if you use spells to calm the champion before killing him, you can access hidden dialogue where you learn that Boethia needs a new champion since this dark elf is no longer willing to kill in her name and decided to favor blacksmithing instead. But even though he seems like a nice enough guy, you'll still have to kill him regardless if you want to obtain the Ebony Mail Armor. But it is still interesting that Bethesda decided to add all this extra dialogue to one character that 99% of players will never see. It's part of what makes Skyrim such a special game, even after 11 years. Number 4. You can spare Hrogar in Laid to Rest. The Laid to Rest quest has you uncovering the truth behind a mysterious house fire which occurred in Morthal that killed a mother and daughter. During the quest, you discover that vampires have claimed Morthal as their own and began to dig their fangs into the city's denizens. It concludes with you infiltrating the vampire's hideout and exterminating all the bloodsuckers that reside there. One of the main vampires in this story is a Nord woman named Alva, who seemingly became lovers with Hrogar, the father and husband of the housefire victims, soon after the death of his family. During the quest, you're tasked with breaking into Alva's house to retrieve her journal. But there's one problem. Hrogar is keeping an eye out for intruders for the majority of the day. Because of this, most players would simply kill Hrogar, since he immediately becomes hostile upon the player entering the house. But if you break in during Hrogar's working hours or use a calming spell on him, then Hrogar can survive the events and lay to rest. You also learn that Hrogar didn't actually love Alva, but was enthralled by her instead. So, he even has some unique dialogue if you spare him, thanking the Dragonborn for freeing him from Alva's grasp. Crazy exes. We've all been there, Hrogar. Number 5. You can provide Eltry's information about the Forsworn for gold. When entering Markarth for the first time, it's likely that you found yourself wound up in a conspiracy regarding the Forsworn. Within seconds of entering the city, you witness the murder, or attempted murder if you're fast enough, of an Imperial named Margaret, and are later given a note by a mysterious man named Eltrys, which tells you to meet him at the Shrine of Talos. Seems pretty sketchy, but following through with the quest will begin with the Forsworn Conspiracy quest. Despite this quest being one of the most well-known in the entire game, there's a secret that the majority of players have no idea about. Throughout this quest, you're required to gather information about various people in Markarth to find out what's causing all of these Forsworn-related killings. There are 4 people in total that you have to gather information on, and most players decide to investigate each person back to back. However, what many players aren't aware of is that you can come back to the Shrine of Talos and tell Eltrys what you learned about each individual person before moving on to investigate someone else. Doing so will net you a nice gold reward for each piece of information gathered. Be sure to do this before being officially told to come back to Eltrys, as by the time that happens, he's already had a pretty nasty case of sword in the back by corrupt guards and died. Number 6. You can kill Astrid and destroy the Dark Brotherhood. Being one of the 4 main factions in the game, it's likely that you've run across the Dark Brotherhood during your playthroughs, or have at least heard of them. Although joining the Dark Brotherhood during an evil playthrough is all well and good, players who are hoping to play as a good-natured character are left in an awkward position, as doing the whole hero of the people thing doesn't really work when you're murdering innocent people on the side. As a result, such players would either have to swallow their heroic pride and join the Dark Brotherhood, or ignore them altogether. But what many people aren't aware of is that Bethesda gave people a third option: destroy the Dark Brotherhood. After deservingly killing Grail of the Kind during the Innocence Lost quest and being kidnapped, you're ordered by Astrid to kill one of 3 captives. But what many players don't know is that you can also choose to draw your sword onto Astrid herself. Doing so will get you into a tough fight with the assassin. Once you kill her, you're automatically given a new quest called Destroy the Dark Brotherhood, where you have to go to the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary in Falkreath and kill everyone there. Completing this quest will also net you 3,000 gold, so you can still get rich off the Dark Brotherhood while still keeping your dignity.
Subscribe to Fall Damage, you milk drinker.